a non-traditional credit trade line. Maybe you have a gym membership, okay, that you pay every 12 months, and you show a consistent credit history, and we can use that to document that you're responsible in making your payments.
Because of restrictions and things that you can't do, you've got to turn away buyers and the people that you were called to help in the first place. If that's you, get in contact with us.
How we get veterans with bad credit approved for homes on this episode of Major Money Matters. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Major Money Matters. Got my brother on the line with me. Hey, brother, how's it going?
Hey, all is well. People want to know how we do what we do and why others can't. So
sometimes, listen, and I go back and forth on this because people sometimes ask me how I do something, and sometimes I say, hey, do you want to know what time it is, or do you want to know how the clock works? So do you just want to know what time it is? This is simple stuff. But for veterans, we see a lot of veterans get turned away and have questions about, hey, I'm getting turned away, but is there another option for me? And that's the reason we're actually doing this video, so the veteran knows that you should not take the no when you know there's a way that it can be done. And this conversation is specifically on VA loans, okay? All loans have different types of guidelines. We're gonna have a VA loan conversation right now. So we're gonna talk about, how VA loans work and how we process things on the mortgage underwriting side, or what we expect. And this is specifically a VA manual underwrite. Now, a couple of things you need to know before I get to what a manual underwrite is. You need to know that not all lenders do manual underwrites, okay? So, and not all lenders want to do a manual underwrite, even if the company does the manual underwrite, because manual underwrites are sometimes painful. A lot of questions, a lot of documentation, and they can be a little bit challenging, but at the end of the day, we do it because our objective is to get the veteran into a home. And brother, I'll tell you, recently you've done some amazing things. You helped a homeless veteran. This is veteran living in shelter, get into a home on a VA manual underwrite. You also helped a veteran who had a foreclosure and like 6 mortgage payments late.
Yeah, so
get into a home.
we don't recommend these things, but we understand that veterans do go through, as anyone does. Veterans go through points in their life where their finances can become compromised, and so in the situation where, yes, an actual homeless veteran living at a homeless shelter, yes, we were able to close that veteran and get him into his own home. In the other case, yes, a foreclosure in 2019 and 6 mortgage lates in 2024. We are now recording this in 2025. So 6 mortgage lates in 2024. Yes, I was also able to close that, and that's using the VA manual process.
And I want to go through what that manual process is. And so let's talk about first how we get to that point, okay? Now, you submit an application, you submit all your documentation, you submit pay stubs, we review your credit report and everything. And think of that as a bunch of information going into a filter, and we putting it into a system. That system could give us what we call a automated approval, okay? Or, for lack of not getting deep into mortgage terms, a non-approval automatically, okay, on a VA loan. Non-approval automatically, all right? So when we do that, automated approval, good to go. Now, it's important for you to know, everyone, at some point, you are going to get a non-approval, okay? It could be that you're only qualified up to $500,000, and maybe your income, assets, or whatever only say, you can do, you're trying to do 800,000, and we're looking at your situation, and we're saying the system is saying, hey, you can't do 500, or you can't do 800, but you can do 500 or 500,000. So at some point, that incremental, when you're going up that incremental ladder, you're going to get to the point where the system says you cannot do this at this amount of money. Okay. Now, you could also have, at some point, some people are going to have not you're going to not be able to get approved automatically through our system. Now, brother, what are some reasons that we might see that where the individual or the veteran cannot be automatically approved? What type of situations might we see in those situations?
I'm going to get into that, but I want to say something first before I say that. In many other large big box lenders or retail organizations that you go to, at the moment that you do not get an automatic approval, your loan and your veteran is thrown out. Okay, and they're told, sorry about that, they're told to come back in 6 months and fix this, fix that, come back in 6 months, and maybe you can buy a house then. We both know that in 6 months that veteran is not coming back, and that you've just lost a veteran buyer, and you as a realtor no longer have a client. Okay, so when and I'll tell you some of the reasons why that might happen, and that can happen due to credit history. Okay, it could happen due to not having enough trade lines on your credit, or the use of credit. It could also happen because I ran out. Give me one, brother.
Credit score
There
is
you go.
another one. Yeah. I mean, credit score. Now, when we talk about the VA manual underwrite, you're going to note that we never talk about the credit score because the credit score is not a concern. And this is important for you guys that are realtors. If you are looking at a situation and you're saying, hey, and the lender tells the individual, hey, your minimum credit score has to be 620 for you to do a VA loan. Okay. The veteran or active duty service member walks away thinking, oh, the minimum credit score on a VA loan is 620. No, the minimum credit score for that lender is 620. Okay. And I tell realtors this all the time. Like, you have to be very good or very proficient in asking a very direct question. Okay. Is what you're saying a guideline, or is it an overlay? Okay. Because each lender has overlays. So you have to be very particular when you're talking to your lending partner, saying, hey, you're saying my person can't do this because this, and this. And there are a lot of overlays in the VA space, okay? Because the VA guidelines are very flexible, okay? You can do a lot of things with a VA loan that you can't do with a conventional FHA or USDA loan. But you need to be able to figure out, is what you're being told a guideline, or is it an overlay? Credit score is the most common type of overlay. The other reason that you might not get approved, assets. You might not just have enough assets, especially, brother, we're seeing this where people want to buy multifamily properties. And sometimes you're able to buy a duplex without a lot of assets. But if you're buying a triplex, quadplex, usually they're gonna the underwriting or the underwriting system is going to require you to have 6 months of reserve. So you might not have that, and you might not get an automatic approval. So then we have to switch over to what we call the VA manual underwrite. The VA manual underwrite. So when we do the VA manual underwrite, we review the credit. What's the first thing we're looking for, brother, when we're reviewing that credit report?
Well, before we go there, brother, I just wanted to bounce back on talking about guidelines and overlays. And if we were doing an Instagram reel, this would be a good place for a nice graphic. And I'll just say that the guideline is the foundation for which all things are guided, for lack
Yeah.
of a better word.
Yeah.
And then individual lenders are going to overlay their own requirements on top of that foundation. And the overlays for any lending in every lending organization could be similar, but it can be very different.
Mm.
Okay, and so how we avoid or the overlays is by having options of different lending partners who we partner with as mortgage brokers.
That's interesting there, because if you have an overlay for different, let's say if I was a teenager and I wanted to grow up in a house where I didn't have many rules. Okay. I wanted to be I'm 14, I get to choose which house I grow up in. Okay. Now, if I get to choose which house I grow up in, I might choose a house. Every single house I grow up in is going to have at least one rule. Okay. At least one. Okay. Maybe two or three. If you grew up in mine, we got about 800 rules. Okay. But if you want it to be unruly, you can grow up in any house. But if you choose to grow up in that house, what you don't realize is you're also choosing not to have a rule on this particular thing. Maybe you don't have a rule on social media. You can have any social media account you want, but you got to be home at 12 o'clock. Okay. So at each house, or when you go into a house, you have different rules, not things that are illegal or legal or illegal, but they're different judgment things that the parent puts in place. Okay. Same way with lending. I might go over here to this lender where I say, hey, I can do this over here at this lender. But remember, I can't do this, this, and this at this lender. And that is, how it formulates the buyer's purchasing experience. So we got to know whether because we're brokers and we have outlets, and we both are wearing UWM t-shirts today. Okay. Represent UWM, big fans. They all right with me. Okay. They're cool. All right. But if I go to UWM with a VA loan, a very good lender for VA loans, I can close that loan in 7 or 8 days at UWM if I'm doing that VA loan at UWM. But there might be some other things I can't do. For example, UWM is not going to do a VA manual underwrite. Okay. So I can't go to UWM and do a VA manual underwrite and close in 8 days because it's a different ballgame. So you got to understand different options. But if a lender comes, or if a realtor comes to me or a buyer comes to me and they say, well, we need to close this deal in 2 weeks. Can you do it? Hey, I've got an approved VA buyer, not a manual underwrite. 2 weeks, easy day. Let's roll. Let's do it. If you come to me with a 503 credit score and say, hey, Major, can you close this in 2 weeks? It's going to be tight. We're going to lose some sleep because I got to find a lender that will do that. But we got to understand how overlays work.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I want to go into your question that you asked me. When we do not get automatic approval, okay, and the first thing we want to look at is we want to look at that credit report, and like you said before, we don't have a minimum score, so we're not looking for a minimum score on that credit report. We're looking for other factors, and the first of which is going to be, are there any lates in the past 12 months?
Any reported lates in the last 12 months. And some people will come to us like, well, I didn't actually pay it late. This is going on and everything. Listen, is it reported late or is it not? Maybe you hadn't paid it late in the last 12 months, but for whatever reason, that creditor decided to report it on the credit report 3 months ago and it just popped up. We got to deal with that. Okay. We can't just say, hey, this is not real. Okay. We actually have to deal with that. And you're right. We're not talking score. Okay. We want credit history, not necessarily credit score. Now, the credit score will dictate your interest rate. Okay. Or your pricing on that loan. All right. But we're not looking for that as far as getting you into the home. Now, after we look at the credit history, okay, I will say, if you don't have any lates reported in your credit report in the last 12 months, there's about a 90% chance we can get you into a home if you don't have any lates reported in the last 12 months. About a 90% chance, no matter what your credit score is, none reported in the last 12 months, you're probably going to be okay. But once we go from there, what's our next layer of what we're looking at as far as whether we can get that buyer or that veteran approved, brother.
Well, I want to maybe go to the next one, but stay here, kind of in the
Mm-hmm.
same vein,
Okay.
okay? But I also want to say, well, what if I do have leaks in the past 12 months?
That's a good one. That's a good point because many of the situations where we help veterans get into homes, they're turned downs or something from another lender because even if they do manuals, VA manual underwrites, they will say you have to have no lates reported in the past 12 months. We can sometimes figure out a way around something if we can explain through no fault of the veteran that this was a late payment because of this. Let's give some examples of things we have actually experienced with these situations doing a manual underwrite. Okay. I had a veteran that was going through cancer treatment. Okay. He had to take time off from work, had 3 months off from work. His bills piled up because he wasn't working hours and things like that. And we were able to explain it with documentation. Okay, medical documentation. I was going through treatment. I had to take time off of work. Now I'm back at work. That situation's been not resolved, but under control, and I'm back at work and I'm working. But that's why I had late payments. What are some situations you've seen specifically where you had to explain stuff to an underwriter or justify late payments?
True story. A veteran and wife that I helped, they were managing two households. So they put one house up for sale, and while the wife took a job at another location, and they got someplace to live that was closer to where she worked. This house was up for sale for an extended period of time, and there was some trouble getting that house sold. So over the course of 6 months, trying to maintain two households, one of those households, the house that was for sale, became 30 days late and subsequently was 30 days late for 5 months after that. We
Mm,
were able to explain that and provide documentation to that and with proof that it sold in the 6 month. And we were
mm.
able to get that loan closed.
So a lot of this comes down to what we call underwriter discretion.
Hmm.
Okay. Can you work with the underwriter to find a reason that this actually was a late payment? And sometimes the underwriter will ask us when we're doing these manual underwrite, hey, Major, what's the story here? Tell me the story. Now, I will tell you, frankly, some things that don't fly, some things, some explanations that don't work. Okay. You forgot to make the payment. Not gonna work. That boat ain't go. That boat ain't gonna float. Okay. Um. Oh, I got a divorce. Well, technically, the divorce was your choice. So that's not a reason that you can really give to say, hey, this was late. Okay. If you say I got a divorce and in the divorce documents was this person's responsibility to make the payment, maybe, maybe, okay? But just I got a divorce, not gonna fly. I forgot, not gonna fly. Okay, you gotta have a valid reason. And we're spending some time on this, brother, because this is the majority of how is this done? Can we tell the story? Okay, and can we make this make sense for the underwriter to give us an approval on this? Okay, now go ahead. I'm sorry, I
And,
cut you
and
off.
let me touch on that because number one, your story needs to be able to be documented. So you need to have proof. And any new element that you bring up in your story has to be documented as well.
So you got to
So
be
if you've
careful
been
how you tell that story. It's kind of like you talking to your teenagers, like, oh, we my phone battery charge went out, so I couldn't call and make a call. Oh, who are you with? Oh, we were there, and then Johnny and Mike showed up. How did Johnny and Mike know you were there? Well, I called them and gotcha, gotcha,
see,
gotcha.
you see where you messed up. You see where you messed up right there. You you were going good.
You were going good. You almost had me. You almost had me.
Ooh.
But that's just how you got to be careful what you write in the letter. You're like, wait, whoa, no, you can't say and. You got to say or. You got this. It comes down to that because you're and sometimes in these explanations, less is more.
Yes.
You got to be able to be able to navigate it. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
because if you throw something in there that's crazy, you're gonna get turned down.
So speaking of which, I'm gonna move on to the next thing that we're looking for, but I also have something to add. It all ties together
Hmm.
because we're going to be looking for 24 months of your rental history. Okay. And in the same vein as explaining things, because your verification of rent could be as simple as sending an email to a landlord who verifies that you paid this amount of money for this amount of months. Okay. But there can be some sticky things in there where property managers changed. I've experienced that.
Yeah,
Or just they can't find a record, just poor management where they can't find a record, and you start to explaining these things and just thinking that you're going to be able to overcome this. Well, now you said, well, I went to live with my cousin during these 2 months. Okay, well, now we need a lease from your cousin.
yeah.
Or
Who's
we
out?
need
Yeah. If did it wasn't your cousin's house, did they own it or did they lease it? Now you got to give a lease agreement from your cousin, and then your cousin's like, I ain't getting a house. Why am I giving you the lease agreement? This ain't got nothing to do with me. Listen, your cousin got to help you out because we got to have everything that lines up with the story that we're telling, at least for the last 24 months.
and it becomes listen, this part, just 2 weeks ago, Major, you drove 30 minutes, 45 minutes out to another city to
I,
try to track down someone to
and
verify.
and
um,
let me tell you, listen, in this city, it is not necessarily welcoming for people who look like me.
this is not a place where you want to do door-to-door sales. If you are
Listen,
of the
well, no, we ain't gonna go there. I just said people who look like me. Could be bald people. Could be bald people. Okay. Could be people with mustaches and beards. Okay. I'm not gonna call out a city. Okay. But, you know, I had one of my friends call me who don't look like me, and I told him where I was going. And he said to me, hey man, you need to come pick me up first. Okay. Before you go to that city in that area. But it was necessary to get the verification of rent done.
and I will add that your friend that you called, he had hair and he did not have a mustache and a beard.
So you can
Okay.
figure out what looks like me. But listen, I was 2 months short on a verification of rent. We're supposed to close in 2 days. Okay, I got an address for where the person lives. I got to go knock on the door because I have no other option than to get this than to get this done. So, sometimes it is what it is. You got to do what you got to do. I could tell you who's not gonna drive to that area: Navy Federal Credit Union, USAA, Veterans United. They're not driving there. They're not. They're, they're telling you. They're sending you an email. Hey, you got to figure this out, or else you're not going to close. Okay, and that was an interesting situation because that buyer had a bankruptcy and like 5 lates in the past month or in the past 12 within the last 12 months that we had to explain. Why were you late? Okay, so we're going through this, guys. I want you guys to understand there is a way, but you got to figure it out. You got to have the story to tell.
And I'd like to touch into one of my own recent stories
Mm-hmm.
that that I needed a verification of rent from a woman who is elderly, and she owned the property where my veteran lived, and he paid her rent per month, but I needed to verify from her that this rent was paid. And she's elderly, she's not tech savvy. she was sent a DocuSign. Well, she got sent a DocuSign, and then she says, well, I need to go up to the UPS store so that I could fax the signed copy of the verification of rent back to you. No, just click right where it says sign here. Just click on that, and I'll talk you through it. Well, no, baby, I'll go up there. I've done this before. I'll go up there. I'll have them. What's your fax number, baby? Let me
Gotcha,
send
bro.
you the fax. 1 week later, I don't have a verification of rent. And my clear to close is hanging on this verification of rent. I mean, fortunately, some repairs had to be done to the property for the veteran, so it bought us some time, but I still don't have this verification. I'm saying, ma'am, I will drive 35 minutes out to Red Oak and I will get this piece of paper. No, baby, they know me up there. I'll just go back up there and send it to you in this time, and you should have it.
All the while, listen, all the while, you've got realtors. Hey, where are we? Where got clear coast? Got clear coast title. We got documents yet? Why we don't have documents? What are y'all doing? Man, well, my lender, my other lender could get this done quickly and all this stuff. And you deal with all of this stuff, and they have no idea.
First, we know your lender can't do it. We
That's
know that.
why you came to us in the first place, because your lender turned the thing down. Now you want to say your lender could have got it. You are not telling the truth. Like this is the
Okay,
stuff we
all right.
deal with, man.
24 months of rental history.
24 months verification of rent. Okay. All right. So next thing. Okay. Once we have that. Okay. Remember, we've got a non-approval automatically. Okay. We got verification of rent that we have to do. Okay. We have to explain any lates on the credit report. Okay. And finally, then we need to have compensating factors. Okay. Now, brother, what are some compensating factors that we sometimes will point out to the underwriter of saying, hey, I know we don't have an automated approval, but we do have these other compensating factors to compensate for not having automated approval. Typically, you need 2 to 3, okay, of these in order to justify approval for the underwriter. Brother, what are some of those compensating factors?
So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run down a list, and then we can come back and kind of pull 2 or 3, to
Sure.
talk about.
Okay, got
Um,
it.
but first of all, we need to exceed residual income. All right. And that's a mortgage term, but it just means that the veteran can handle the mortgage. Okay.
Sure.
So we've got to have a minimal increase in housing expense. All right. Substantial and stable employment history, significant cash reserves, conservative use of credit, a large down payment, and then significant additional income that may not have been counted.
These are really, really good. So I will start with the income that may not have been counted. Maybe you have a spouse that's not going on the loan, and they have income coming in, but they're not on the loan for whatever reason. You have household income that's not included in the loan, and there are many times where we have income that's not included on the loan. And then the other one I like is conservative use of credit. So people might say, "Well, I don't have any debt." But so that means I should automatically get an approval. I should be at not necessarily. Okay. If you don't have any debt, maybe you don't have enough trade lines, okay, or a recent activity on your credit report or something like that for the system to give you an automated approval. But brother, what are some of the ones that you've seen that you've had to leverage as far as compensating factors are concerned?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the trade lines because at a particular manual lender that we have, VA manual lender, they were looking for at least three trade lines, and I said, well, my guy, my veteran, only has one trade lines. Well, they said, well, does he have any other trade lines that are delinquent? And I was like, well, yeah, there are two other delinquent trade lines. So they were able to, even though they were delinquent, and we could explain the delinquent, but it totaled three trade lines. So that really helped us out. And I'll also say another one that helped me out was having a large cash reserve.
Mm.
Okay. So we weren't hitting on the other things, but my veteran did have a sizable amount of cash in the bank from a previous house that was sold some time ago. And we were able to say, hey, this amount of money is right here, and the lender was able to look at that cash reserve.
There's also the option of doing a credit supplement to document things that might not be showing on the credit report. For example, let's say that you have a Verizon account or a AT&T account, where you make that monthly payment every month or something like that. You can do what's called a non-traditional trade line at some lenders. Okay, a non-traditional credit trade line. Maybe you have a gym membership, okay, that you pay every 12 months or every month or something like that. And you show a consistent credit history, and we can use that to document that you're responsible in making your payments and everything like that. And we do a credit supplement to get that trade line added to your credit report. So those are things that we can do. Okay, so we wanted to take some time to really. This is your video right now when you ask, how are you doing this when my lender can't do it or my builder's lender can't do it? Because we do a lot of builder business, because builder's lender they are very cookie cutter, very vanilla. I refer to builders lenders as like macaroni and cheese with the sheet cheese with the craft. I mean, if you're gonna work with a builder's lender with a VA loan, don't have no flavoring in your macaroni and cheese. Okay, you put some of that Kraft slices on top of some macaroni noodles, and that might work for somebody. Okay, but if if you want some real flavor, you're gonna need to talk to a
Listen,
mortgage broker.
I have a daughter that quite frankly eats Kraft macaroni and cheese every day, and it's not even the cheese one with the cheese
People are
sauce.
judging you so much right now on this
Hey,
video.
the judge, she is eating something, and okay, she is eating something, and she wants that macaroni and cheese that in that Kraft cup every day, and it has powder. It is powdered cheese that
You're
after
getting judged.
you heat those
Somebody is going to
noodles.
comment on you poisoning your child with it. They don't care. Hey, listen, they don't care that you have a daughter and that you're taking care of her and she's happy, and
And that she
you're
feels the love of her father every single
every day.
day.
They don't care about that. They gonna find something for you to complain about, and that freaking craft, man. I cannot believe you.
that,
You are
that he would give his daughter that
the audacity.
corporate America poison.
Yes, terrible.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Aside from that, though, I will say this: if you are a loan officer and you want to serve more veterans and you can't for the life of you understand why you keep having to turn away veterans when it was probably your purpose to get into this industry to help more buyers, to help more veterans, and now because of restrictions and things that you can't do, you've got to turn away buyers and the people that you were called to help in the first place.
Yeah,
If that's you, get in contact with us.
yeah,
Find out about this broker channel, the broker life that we live, why we're able to help so many veterans and put so many veterans into houses that quite frankly would not be in houses if we did not exist for them.
absolutely. If I'll tell you this, if there was a way for me to serve veterans better with a different structure, I do it. But the problem is, I've looked at all of these companies and I figured out that this is the best way for me to serve the veteran community. And whether they have an 800 credit score, they want a lower interest rate, they want to close quickly, we can do that. If they have a 498 credit score, okay, a little hairy, okay, and they've been turned down 3 or 4 times, we can do that. So, the flexibility to serve the veteran community is why we do what we do. So for all of you realtors out there that continue to ask us, like, how are you doing this, or why can you do this and I can't, this person can't, this is your video for, how the clock works. Now we'll tell you what time it is. It's time to help some veterans get into some homes. All right. Talk to you guys soon. See you next time on the next episode of Major Money Matters. God bless you.